All right, it's a couple minutes before 7. We'll get started here in just a couple minutes. Thank you. Okay, so I've got 7:01, um, Tuesday, 21st of March, 2023, and I just clicked off my video. I'm going to click it back on. You should see my screen. This is Zoom session for week number. What are we now? Week 3. Time flies, doesn't it? Yeah. So week 3. This is LDR 440, Leading Change. And I'm Russ Jamison. I'm your instructor for this course. So far, we're having a little bit of a rough time, but everybody seems to be getting into the swing of things, which is critical. I'm going to click off my video here for a little bit because, well, no, I'm going to keep it on, just see how it does. It's been glitchy in the past, so we'll see if maybe today's we're going to have it figured out. Okay, so LDR 440, you know what the course looks like on the screen. You should see a picture of our textbook, Managing Organizational Change. I got to tell you, this is a great textbook. It is very, very complete and involved. It provides you an amazing amount of theoretical work, modeling, or I should say the models with which to use. It all comes down to change image. Okay, so we've talked about that in previous coursework. If you'll recall, I provided some of that to you. I think, what was that in week? Must have been week 2. I think we got into change images. It may have been week 1. So let's go take a look at week 2 real fast. Hey, everybody. Most of you posted on your fellow classmates' posts, and that was good. Yeah, so week 2, we got into images. Okay, so this is one particular response. This was after the discussion question of taking a self-assessment exercise, age 49 to 51. I wanted to find out from you all, what were your 2 highest scores? In other words, what were the change images that your self-assessment came up with? All right. So the way this textbook works is it lays out 6 images to change. And this is on a graph. On the x-axis and the y-axis, you have descriptors, okay? Remember, x to the left, y to the sky. So your x-axis is your horizontal, and your y-axis is your vertical. On the horizontal axis, you have controlling activities and shaping capabilities. All right, control or shape. All right, so on the controlling, more hands-on, if you will. And we're going to find out more about these later on in your reading. Shaping puts us up in the upper level, which means more strategic change. And then on our y-axis, on our vertical, we have images of change outcomes. Remember, your text tells you there are intended outcomes, there are unintended outcomes, and there are some aspects where they are partially intended. In other words, we may have achieved some of what we intended, but we also had some unintended issues, which is probably more realistic in most changes at a higher level if you think about it. Anyway, so your 6 images, and on your screen, you can see me circled out with the cursor. I'm open. You have director, coach, navigator, interpreter, caretaker, and nurturer. Okay. And as we went through this, most of you answered it, but 3 of you did not. So that doesn't help me out much in teaching this course because I'm going to now have to apply a presumption to many of them. All right. But in the end, for this course, the majority, surprisingly enough, uh, selected director and then navigator. Okay, which is very interesting combination. I would say coach and interpreter were very close seconds. Most courses, coach is one of those images. And again, it gets down to the direction that goes behind the change. In other words, director, I'm going to control your activities and I'm going to get what I'm after. Okay. Um, I don't really care if you're on board or not. I'm going to make it happen. The most famous model for this is Cotter's 8-step model. We're going to learn Cotter, Kotter. Like the old TV series. Welcome back, Cotter. Most of you are probably too young to remember that. That was kind of my youth. Excuse me as I drink something here. It's just iced tea, um, even though it's after 5. Okay. Anyway, um, we're going to learn Cotter's model more next week in your reading. But if you read your readings for this week, specifically chapter 4, you read a bunch of models, what we call the n-step models. Um, the 7 and the 4 and the star and the, you name it. There was just, it went on and on. Okay. And those should help you understand that just as we talk about contingency leadership, meaning having a style that we apply in a specific situation that's appropriate to that situation, gets the intended effect. Our change has to change leadership has to have a specific model that we use in order to get what we're after. There are times where we are after those first order of change effects, and there's simple things of changing, like we're going to change the font on our letterhead. Okay, well, probably doesn't need a whole lot of participation in that. Okay, that could be a very simple, direct change that I just tell you we're changing. There are other images of change where there's second order effects. Think of a professional football team changing their name in the case of the Washington Commanders, formerly known as the Redskins. Okay, that required a different type of model or participate because you have a lot of people with a vested interest in that, even though they may not be direct investors. And then you have even higher levels of change. Think of currently what we see in the Marine Corps and what the current Commandant of the Marine Corps is doing with his Force Design 2030. Many of you may not be up on the nuances of the military, but suffice it to say that there's been some significant changes to the Marine Corps in the last couple of years that have not been well received because the change model, I would submit to you, the change model was wrong. It was more of a directive than any type of participative, and it was not appropriate to those shaping capabilities and those second order change effects. In other words, coach or interpreter would have been a much more suitable approach. Okay, so each change image has an approach in a given situation, and that's what you read in the week 2 readings was the start of this. In other words, we're going to see this change image keep cropping up, excuse me, keep appearing over the next few weeks when we start getting into barriers to change or communicating change or other type of aspects of change that your approach and your response to will be dictated by your image of what you see is going on. And so that's why it's very important that you go and do the self-assessment and understand these changes. Everything that you write on from here on out will be about what change image you selected and then how you back that up with your evidence. Remember, the fundamental relationship, the one that matters the most, and all you're writing is your conclusion and the evidence that you use to support it. So if your conclusion is, in this particular situation, I would use approach X, then I'm going to want to know your evidence that you use to back that position up. And one of the pieces of evidence would be, according to our text, the change image of coach or director, whatever I see myself as, would use this type of model. And that supports the image. Okay. Okay. Now, remember, the text tells you that unintended, caretaker, nurturer, both are not going to be really talked about in your text, because caretaker, nurturer is really more organizational theory. In other words, that change managers receive change. And in those days, the organizational theory held that there wasn't much you could do about it. In other words, you were just along for the ride. And that makes sense when we listen or pull apart or understand a definition of a caretaker or nurturer. Okay, think of a caretaker for somebody in hospice. There isn't much that caretaker is going to be able to do to substantially affect change. In other words, a person is at the end of their life, but can help that person through it. That was the old organizational theory, was that there wasn't much that a person could do about the change. It was just you were on the ride. Okay, with current now organizational development approach, okay, the OD approach and the change management approach and the sense making approach, all three theories of recent years, as it relates to change, view things a little differently. So in chapter 9, we're going to pull apart coach and interpreter. And in chapter 10, we're going to get into change management and processual, okay, the process, and cover those change images. So ultimately, we're going to cover each and every one of these, and we're going to have a basis of theory to back those up. Okay, and that's what is happening here. You are on what this week is chapter 4 reading. So, we've got some chapters to cover before we get into these particular approaches. But just as it's hard to see a forest for the trees, I tend to sometimes want you as a student to take a step back from your reading, understand the big picture of where the author is taking you in this text. Okay, we normally read in a sequential manner. Okay, we'll read chapter 1, then chapter 2, 3, on to the end of the book, right? And that's fine, but sometimes it's we tend to get lost for the trees of each chapter. Let's take a look at the forest. Let's take a look at the book as a whole. And I think this textbook does a good job of that. Chapter 1, you might go back and reread part of that as it lays out where the textbook is taking. Understand where you're going. Okay, you will read about in chapter 4 the um, the approach or the theory as it relates to identifying the gap. Okay, the gap that is in place. Okay, the gap in your industry, the gap in your uh, providing for your customer base. Okay, and that gap analysis is trying to identify, first off, where we want to apply resources. Okay, and understanding what's happening within our industry. So when we think gap analysis, we're asking ourselves three things. First thing is where am I at now? Okay. Second is where do I want to be in, say, 3 to 5 years? And the third question is, how do I get there? You think about it within mission, statement, vision, and strategy. Your mission statement is where we're at now. Remember, your mission statement is enduring, right? Remember from LDR 300, It doesn't change. It is, in essence, who you are. Okay. And it is a declaration of saying, understanding your mission statement is critical. Where are we at now? Your vision, which is the realm of the leader, all right, is 3 to 5 years out. Where do we want to be? Okay. Think of, an organization that no longer exists. Think of Blockbuster. At one point, Blockbuster had the market covered on video rentals. They were the place to go. They had stores everywhere. All right. Within a few short years, though, they were gone, and you would be hard pressed to find a single Blockbuster still in business. There might be one or two. I'm not sure anymore, but the aspect of it is that they refused to get away from their brick and mortar model of you going to the store to rent the movie. Okay, what has changed? Well, the streaming has changed. I can do it from home. Why do I drive to a store to get a physical uh, container of a movie, i.e., a cassette or a VCR or even a DVD these days, when I can access it through the internet and then just stream my movie, right? Okay, so Blockbuster let their vision get away from them. Okay, other companies are more enduring. Think of Salvation Army or Marriott, both organizations, a nonprofit, Salvation Army, and a for-profit, Marriott, are enduring. They've been around for over 100 years or close to. Marriott, maybe not quite 100 years, but very old. Okay. They are always laying out a vision statement of where they want to be. Okay. It's good to know where you're at. It's good to know where you want to be. But in the end, we need to make sure we know how we want to get there. And that is your strategy. Again, the realm of the leader. The leader informed by his subordinates of the best plan to achieve what his vision is or her vision. Okay. And then the realm of the manager within that is to apply resources and do the things that an organization needs to run effectively and efficiently. It is no longer a either or management or leadership. We have to have both. Okay. And although the activities are very similar, there are distinct and subtle differences between the two. And so we look to managers as bringing order to things, still having to deal with people, still having to deal with resources, and more of the day to day, if you will, and leaders exercising that higher level, that vision, and that influence and that change. So in this course, in week one, I wanted you to give me a distinction between change management and change leadership. And I had given you essentially my take on it, and I didn't see fine. You're certainly welcome to, and I want to, but I assume that many of you agreed or thought what I said might be what is meant by the term change management. We see that within the framework, this class is called leading change, and our textbook is titled managing, right? Let's take a look at that real fast. I hope I'm still broadcasting. It looks like my video camera has frozen. Yeah, I did. Okay, I think I unfroze it, maybe. Anyway, so the course is called Leading Change, but our textbook says Managing Change. Okay, well, what's the difference? Well, again, that's what, part of what I asked in week one was all about. Okay, and some of you opine, or how you modify that, or if you still feel the same way as you progress through the course. All right, as I've indicated in my write-up, I gave you a link to a Forbes article, a little dated, actually very dated, more than 10 years, but still pretty good, of change management versus change leadership. In John Cotter, he says the terms are not interchangeable. The distinction is significant between the two. Change management refers to a set of basic tools or structures to keep any change effort under control. The goal is to minimize those distractions. Change leadership concerns the driving forces, visions, and processes that fuel large-scale transformation. Okay, well, so which set of tools or structures do we use? Well, that all gets down to what is your image of change and what is appropriate for the situation. Okay. So again, this is why in this particular week, I wanted you to read and understand images of change and how we're going to apply that. That is, in a nutshell, what this course is about. Okay. And it's involved. This is not a very simple, easy course to take in the sense that there is not rote memorization. I'm not going to give you a test that tells you to spell out every particular step from memory of the end step model that we're applying. With that said, I do expect you to at least understand the models that are out there, the theories that are out there, and which would apply in a particular given situation within, again, this framework of images of change. Okay. All right. I hope that makes some sense. Now, let me pull back here a minute and tell you that your organizational change paper is coming out and uh, is going to be due in week 8. You have a paper due before then, week 7, so don't get caught short. Okay, the paper week 7, and if you look at my screen, I'll take you there. Is a personal change paper. Okay, personal change project. You're going to go through and answer 8 issues. Okay, here again, I recommend you use paragraph headers when writing your paper. Okay, so your paper needs to address all of these. I do give you a word count. I will tell you I don't grade based on word counts. In other words, if you can write your paper within that framework of 800 words, then go for it. I don't think you can. I think it's very difficult. But if you are a master of word use and brevity, it can be done. Conversely, if it takes you over 8,000 words, go for it. Okay, as long as you are effective in writing your paper and fill it with meaningful information. In other words, I give you these word count or page numbers, not as a grading mechanism, but for you to get an understanding of how much to apply to your effort. All right. I grade on content. Again, that fundamental relationship. What you're arguing, what you're saying, what personal change you want to make, how you articulate your vision, explaining the forces driving that change, the barriers, okay, all these things. Again, that fundamental relationship, the conclusion, what you're writing, and the evidence used to support it. Okay, from there, we're talking about the issue of your week 8 paper. Okay, so let's go do that real fast. Bear with me here. I have somebody texting me in. Okay, so we get into our week 8 paper, organizational change project. Okay, and this is about an organization, right? So that I want you to write about. And again, you're given about 8 issues to take. Okay, and I ask you to use Cotter's 8-stage process. So again, and this is a knock on wood. Okay, we used to say knock on wood that indicated a testable subject. So think through this clearly. Okay, if I'm asking you to use Connor's 8-stage process, I'm giving you an indicator of what change image you're probably going to be using. All right. Okay. So, what is the best change image for that one would use Connor's 8-step process in? Okay. You'll learn that by the time a week 8 rolls around, you'll know that, or you will have read about it. Okay. But in this, again, you're going to go through these 8 issues. Again, use paragraph headers. Again, I give you word count. Okay. These papers must be uploaded into Moodle. Again, take a look. These papers are due on Saturday night. Okay. The week 7 personal change project is due Saturday, 21st of April. The week 8 is Saturday, 29 April. The reason is many of you are turning in late work. And when it comes to the end of the course, I have to get your final grades recorded by Tuesday following that Sunday that the course ends. So by 30 April, when the course ends, I have to be grading your papers so that I can produce a final grade for you to meet that Tuesday timeline. Okay. All right. It's not designed to be harassment packages. I need time to read your papers, and you're putting a lot of work into these. So I'm going to read them. Okay. I always read them 3 times. Each paper I read 3 times. First reading is to go through and see if you hit all of these questions, concerns, all these questions that I want. Okay. That's why paragraph headers help, and a general sense of the paper and how well you've argued your conclusion. The second reading is more detailed. It gets more into grammar, use of proper use of words, structure. That reading, again, I'm not an English major. This is not an English course, but there are certain things that I know to grade that you have to do well. Proper use of capitalization, proper word use, no use of homophones, watching your jargon, making sure your transitions of your paragraphs, basic structures, right? Remembering Microsoft does have a spell check, does have a grammar check, but you also must proofread your paper, right? Because it doesn't catch all the mistakes. And then I read your paper for a third time after I've read everybody else's so that I've got a sense of where everybody stands. I don't grade on a curve, but I will make sure that things are balanced within that framework. In other words, sometimes, if I grade on a certain day an amount of papers and then grade another amount of papers on another day, I may have been in a better mood or may have missed something or been rushed or whatever. So these, this 3 readings I found provides a more balanced and forthright, I think, measure of your performance. And I think is more fair. But if I'm going to read your paper 3 times, I would expect you have at least proofread that paper 2 or 3 times. Okay. All right. So take the time. Most of you are, and I assure you I will take the time. Okay. So it's 7:30. I've been talking all this time. Nobody else is dialed in. For these papers, I've asked again for you to tell me what organization you're going to write about. Okay, I just put the announcement out again here. Okay, it says again about your week 8 organizational paper. Again, just a friendly reminder, I've heard from 3 of you. Okay, one of you I've heard from, but you didn't give me your organization. But a couple of you have. Proverbs 31 Ministry and Duke University Health Systems are the 2 organizations I've been given from 2 students. If you contacted me, I gave you a response. I saw you acknowledge it, so I'm assuming you're still working it. Yes, I have said here in my notice no later than week 4, which is Sunday, the 2nd of April. Please don't wait until that day. Okay, you should already be thinking about this because I want you working towards your paper now as you're responding to discussion questions that I've given you as we're responding to the quiz questions you're being asked. Okay, these are all things that may influence your paper. Please don't try to write this the night before. Okay, I understand things happen. You're very busy folks. You've got full-time jobs, you've got full-time families, you've got a lot going on in your life. I appreciate how busy you are. I know it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Okay. But you have embarked on a journey here. You have contracted with the university for a not insignificant amount of money. It's expensive to be instructed and to be provided an education. That's what we're here to try to do. Okay. So my time is your time. Okay. All right. I will post this, and the videos are posted here under the weekly office hour Zoom sessions, shared video files. I know I missed last week. I apologize for that. I had an exigency that occurred that prevented me from conducting the session. But these sessions that are videotaped are on YouTube. You can access that link through Moodle. Okay, as you can see here in week 1, if you click on this, this will take you to the YouTube video. All right. And that's where I will place this one, or you can just go straight to YouTube and pull it up. Okay. So watching me do it now. So this will be week number 3 Zoom session. And make sure that I've changed this. Again, this is to satisfy part, LDR lead 440. And oh, and I meant to tell you that the slides for each chapter are provided under each week. Okay. The reason for that is these sometimes make it easier to study and to perform for the um, quiz, and hopefully it'll facilitate your learning. But if you go into each week, and let's go to week, say 3, if you scroll down past quiz, you'll see the folder, and there's the PowerPoint for week 3. Okay, which is chapter 4 slides. Okay, all right. So again, the video is acting up. I apologize for that. Hopefully, though, you were able to focus in on the screen. And since it's 7:35, I'm going to go ahead and end this. I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you for your time and attention. Hey, and regardless of what I say, understand I'm going to push you in your learning. Okay. I'm going to challenge you. And this is not criticism. This is to try to attain a better educational experience for you. So let nothing I say cause you any depression. You all are doing well. I encourage you to keep doing so. Those areas that we're being challenged with right now, let's get better at. Those things that we're doing well, let's continue and keep at it. Let's have some fun. Okay. All right. Thank you again for your time and attention. Have a good evening.